robots took my podcast, man.
Ruthless invaders, a defenseless planet. Battle beyond the stars. A lone youth escapes on a last-ditch mission that begins at the edge of the universe. The story of a boy who finds more than he expected.
Make them burn.
And all he can handle.
Does your species have kissing?
Oh, yes. We have that. Try one. That's a hot dog. It comes from Earth. Do you like it?
There's no dog in this.
Mm-mm.
Soybean meal, niacin, dextrose, and sodium nitrate flavoring.
That's what we call meat back home.
Battle beyond the stars. Starring Richard Thomas, George Papard, Robert Vaughn, John Saxon, a battle beyond time, beyond space.
They should fire!
That ends in a desperate gamble.
They'll be able to board us.
It won't make any difference.
Get that hatch open!
Battle beyond the stars.
Yes, thank you and welcome. Welcome to our podcast, Dan Griffith, and welcome back, Daniel Schweiger. Thanks, Dan, for joining us again, man. Welcome back. I feel like you're a friend of the podcast now, just coming back to the
boy,
clubhouse.
Well, happy to be a friend. Happy to be a friend.
And then hopefully we make new friends here with that. It's like a kid's show now, like one of my kids' shows. So, yeah, we're talking about Battle Beyond the Stars. We're going to talk about Battle Beyond the Stars just a little bit as a movie, and then the James Horner score, and we talk about Dan Griffith and his interesting behind-the-scenes docs and all that he makes. And
yeah, welcome. So, well, how do we refer to you two gentlemen? Is Dan G and Dan S okay? Or
sure.
Yeah. Jordan, do you want to 3, 2, 1 us and we'll get started?
Yeah, sure. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to our podcast. The robots took my podcast. I am Jordan.
And I am Anthony.
And we have guests today. We have Dan Schweiger, film historian, actor. Dan, do you want to give us your credits as an actor?
Oh my God! Well, of course, the cult masterpieces, Free Enterprise, and Bubba Hotep, and Phantasm Ravager are my 3 big hits.
Wow.
And a bunch of other things here and there.
That's twice you worked for Don Casarilli. That's pretty cool. We had you on a previous podcast as a guest talking about Dragon Slayer, movie, the great 1981 movie Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, and Dan Griffith, Dan G from here on out.
From Ballyhoo Pictures.
Yeah. Where do folks know you from?
Yeah, it's hard to say. A lot of people know me from all the Mystery Science Theater 3000 work that I did in the past. Basically worked on all the DVD releases for all the episodes of that show and worked on the reboot of the show that was on Netflix. And
oh wow!
But then most of the stuff I do are just documentaries for some of people's favorite or not so favorite movies, depending on who you ask.
But I mean, some ones of note. I mean, Streets of Fire, which we talked about on a previous podcast. That's just even scratching the surface. But
and Streets of Fire is actually one of my favorite movies.
I'm glad you said that. Same here. Yes.
And so I really pushed to do a documentary about it, and it was really there's basically 10 documentaries I want to make before I die, and that's on that list. So at least knocked out a couple of them.
Oh wow, cool.
Oh wow. Today we're talking about Battle Beyond the Stars, specifically because, Jordan, why is that?
Because I noticed that Dan Schweiger had worked on the 4K DVD, and I thought he might want to talk about it again. And because of the James Horner music that is so interesting and has an interesting story with it.
Well, I really got to say I owe my appearances or what they may be on Blu-rays and 4Ks to Dan. I totally forget how we met, but Dan's just an amazing producer, just with extras in general. But Daniel really shares my love of music, and whenever there is the chance, if I'm not on it, but he always really makes an effort to do a segment about the composer. And obviously, I'd better to have the actual composer there than me yakking about it. But sadly, sadly, tragically, when James can't be there, we're there with Jeff Bond and Dave Newman and James's wife, Sarah Horner, to talk about his early career in this disc. But again, Dan's just gotten really just a whole bunch of amazing projects, and I'm very grateful to be in a bunch of them.
Oh, that was cool too. You were the one that recommended bringing him on here, even with you, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, yeah, me and Daniel, I think we share a lot of mutual friends, but I think our paths crossed when I started working on the Empire doc, and your relationship with Full Moon in the past. I think somehow our paths got intersected, and then we realized that we both shared this immense love for film music.
Right.
And we also share the belief that there's not enough features that talk about scores for specific films. So anytime we have an opportunity, Daniel's amazing and his knowledge is amazing. And so just the opportunity to work on these with him, we collaborate really well together on it. And I love it. So anytime there's a film, I'll mention to him, hey, you want to do something about the score to this movie? Usually 9 times out of 10, we make it work.
Yeah.
And speaking of score, I think that's a good point. I think this is an interesting movie and an interesting score to an interesting movie. And the story behind this is also, pretty compelling. Let me pause real quick. For a lot of our audience or whoever may not be familiar with this movie, let's just give just a quick rundown of what it is. I guess people probably heard of a little movie called Star Wars that came out.
Oh yeah, that little movie,
little independent feature, which became quite successful. And in true Hollywood style, so many movies jumped in to cash in on that type of movie, like this new concept of sci-fi fantasy. On this podcast, we previously talked about Star Crash, which was, depending on your taste, maybe one of the not so greats. And I think there's a pretty compelling case that Battle Beyond the Stars is probably one of the better cash-ins to Star Wars.
Can I say I feel like Battle Beyond the Stars is a Star Wars movie in my mind. It's like the Lost Star. It's like set somewhere in that universe still.
Well, I mean, it's as much of a cash in as the Magnificent Seven was a cash into the Seven Samurai.
True.
But it's using pretty brilliant source material that that John Sayles that you wouldn't expect in a million years. When you're talking Star Wars terrible, you're talking stuff like the humanoid. You're talking stuff that doesn't have like two minds. I mean, maybe a couple. I've never seen it, but I've seen enough of it. But a lot of this stuff didn't have like 2 cents to even rub together in terms of doing something creative. But this movie really did.
Oh yeah, it's right up there. I think I agree with Jordan. I hadn't seen it in a very, very, very long time. I think maybe once as a kid, to be honest. And it's Roger Corman New World, which, I mean, if you like camp and things like that, then that's the kind of movies they made. And so I was watching this and I was like, this is a Roger Corman movie. Like this thing's actually pretty darn good. And one of the things that just stands out is this fantastic cast. I don't want to necessarily go through everybody, but it's just like you got Robert Vaughn, who was in the original Magnificent Seven, sort of reprising his role. Mm-hmm. And then you got the great John Saxon of everything.
Yeah, George Peppard.
George Peppard we were just talking about Damnation Alley.
He's got the Southern accent. He's like Tana.
And so Sybil Danning, I mean, the list goes on, but you're just like, wow, magnificent cast. Mm-hmm. Impressive for New World, especially effects and ships models. And then you have this musical score. which I really think, I don't think it's a controversial opinion, really elevates the movie another notch.
It does.
I think it does elevate, all the hard work that went into the film. While you do kind of see the seams and everything, I feel like, I would say Humanoids from the Deep aside, it's one of my favorite scores, probably one of the best scores ever to come out of New World, in my opinion.
Yeah, agree.
And it has a lot to do, I think, with Horner more than it does Corman or Associates. I think that it just shows at this early stage that he was very hungry to make his voice heard, and he did so with a lot of limitations, a lot of things that were working against him to pull off something of this scale, and I think he did so beautifully. So.
Yeah, working on a Roger Corman New World movie, the one thing, going back and sort of watching featurettes and documentaries on that, the sense I get is like you walk in there and everyone's like 25 years old or something. It's just a bunch of folks, most of them just sort of getting their feet wet, new to the business. Some of these folks obviously would go on and become great talents like Horner. But I guess he was sort of in the mix because was this Battle Beyond the Stars was his, third movie to score?
Yeah, he'd started off with Corman with The Lady in Red, which is a fairly brief score. Not a lot of scory stuff in it. It's mostly kind of 20s, 30s source music. And then he does Humanoids from the Deep, which is, drawing on his more abstract concert music, which was I believe his original intention was to go into kind of academic concert music. And then he got bitten by the film score bug. And I mean, there's definitely a lot of good melody in Humanoids, but with Battle Beyond the Stars, he gets more resources musically, and it's a much more rousingly melodic and heroic and feel-good score, that really is just like this incredible calling card. Like, that's why you run to Roger Corman, hopefully. You do your best with what you've got, and you're going to come out of there with a pretty good calling card and not come back.
Did Horner have a big orchestra on Battle?
I think relatively, for the budget, yeah. I think, yeah.
I know that's something that producers like Corman and Cannon, even Menachem Golan, would be cheap about, even sometimes just even hiring the damn orchestra. That's why I was curious.
Yeah, I think Corman saw an opportunity to do something in a grander scale to compete with, or at least not really compete with Star Wars, but just to not be overlooked or overshadowed by all the other knockoffs that were going to be coming out.
Like we'd already had Star Crash come out, so it's like
I think that he realized that within his means, with what he is willing to spend, I think he was trying to make a more lavish production than other productions he was participating in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because I heard that he bought a lumber yard, correct me if I'm wrong, and then basically built his a soundstage, so to speak, or built a production studio, more or less, for this film.
Yes.
I think it was his biggest budgeted film at the time, if I'm correct.
It was $3 million, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Around that?
Yeah, it was the Hammond Lumberyard that he retrofitted. It was really just to make use of space that he needed to be a certain scale, because the larger you make your miniatures, the more detail you can get in there, and more detail you get in there, the more realistic it looks. And I think that he trusted people like James Cameron and others that were giving him the insight, hey, you want to do this, and you want to compete with what was accomplished there. We kind of have to raise the stakes and be conscious of scale.
Yeah, and scale, I mean, and he got some big actors like Robert Vaughn and George Papard, I think, who, for a Corman film, I mean, they're costing more than Doug McClure. You know what I mean? Nothing, no slam on Doug McClure, but you know what I mean. So, but I mean, he's putting the money behind it, and I think it shows. It's a tremendous film. If anyone hasn't really seen this, go and watch it. Normally we spoil the hell out of movies. This time we're not. Go watch it. It's a lot of fun, and I think the money was well used, and it really shows on the screen. And I don't know. It's just a charming movie. I don't know what else to say about that.
Well, you mentioned the cast, and I mean, it's important to point out that some of these people already had a history with Corman. I mean, like you mentioned, Robert Vaughn. Robert Vaughn was in Teenage Caveman. which was a film that Corman
That's right.
directed
Yeah.
back in '58. So there is this aspect of where you're like, "Ooh, look at the big stars," but some of these people cut their teeth with Corman, right alongside Corman, as Corman was trying to learn the ropes. A lot of these actors, the veteran actors, were a part of that world.
Yeah.
He got Robert Vaughn out of a loyalty. I mean, maybe.
It's possible, but it's also possible that Robert Vaughn needed the dough. I don't know.
But he was, of course. Vaughn was like, "You still have to pay me."
I think George Papard was also in that sort of vein. I think he appreciated the work, so to speak. But that's interesting to think that. Yeah, I guess Corman had amassed a lot of calling cards in the industry over the years. And I think a lot of people expected, well, I'm going to work for Roger. I'm not going to make much money, but okay, it's a job, it's a gig. And this particular one, I think, it's a well-written script.
It's great.
Oh yeah, very tight.
John Sayles. To quote Boogie Nights, it's a real movie, Jack. You know what I mean? It's a real movie.
It's like John Sayles remade Magnificent Seven in his own image in a space opera form. That's the beauty of it too, I think.
And Sayles had already done prior work with Corman. So
he done Piranha, right?
And Lady in Red.
Lady in Red.
Oh, I forgot. I need to watch that movie.
It's good. Good little movie. Yeah. All the gangster movies are fun.
Yeah. St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
What's interesting is, and I think we've talked about this before, Roger Corman is going to stretch a dollar, just to put it kindly. And what's interesting about this movie, Battle Beyond the Stars, is sort of what it birthed. Okay, in a sense of like how many times on New World and other pictures, the sets, the models,
the model shots,
the score.
And of course, the score, the music, most importantly.
Everything reused. And sort of, I guess, Space Raiders was probably one of the more notable ones when literally sequences are just played backwards. If I'm thinking of this correctly, like played backward, or the same models are used. Forbidden World, of course, sets. Galaxy of Terror, of course, sets, which we talked about. And the soundtrack. And he would further just license these to other entities and other companies just to use the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score does pop up in other, like both New World and New Horizon stuff that would come out later from Corman. The score is sprinkled kind of all over the third Deathstalker movie. And, and as you mentioned Space Raiders, I just have to say, I have the one sheet that I had when I was a kid that I got from the local theater that I would go to and frequent. They had it displayed, but the film never played there. But I love the one sheet.
I almost bought that one sheet on eBay.
I still have that same one. It's framed in my my office, and I would say I love Space Raiders.
So do I.
It's such a weird, I don't know, like repurposing of a lot of material from another film. But when I interviewed Luca Bercovici for the Empire documentary, who directed Ghoulies for Charles Band.
Oh, that movie. Yes, I remember that movie.
He was one of the people in that, and I interviewed him talking about his experience making that. And then Tom Christopher, the late Tom Christopher, he passed away. Yeah. When I interviewed him for the Buck Rogers Blu-ray set, I asked him all about his experiences making Space Raiders. I must have been like the only person. Just a funny side note about Space Raiders. When director Jeff Brer came to my office the first time to watch through something we were working on, he looked up and he just stared for a second. He looked over at me and he goes, "You have to be the only person on the planet Earth that has a one sheet for Space Raiders hanging anywhere in their home."
Wow.
It was the funniest thing, but he's probably right.
Wow, that's awesome.
Hell, I have Mind Warp hanging up right now. The Galaxy of Terror, other title that, like, from the southern region, hanging up. And I've seen that Space Raiders one sheet on eBay so many times and been this close to buying it because I love the way it looks. I love all the new. I have the Android poster too. I mean, I love the New World style of art from that time period.
It's a lost art form, really.
Yeah,
it is. It is.
Yeah. Space Raiders. Hey, we could talk about that. That's a fun movie.
I think Space Raiders is better than Phantom Menace.
I've
dare I
never
say.
seen it. I've
Whoa.
never
What?
seen it. No.
Dan
Sorry.
Schweiger, what?
You got me.
I first saw it at daycare center in the 80s. I'm showing my age here, but they put it on. It was one of those movies like Ewok Adventure they'd put on to shut us up.
Yeah, no, I think it played on like constant rotation on HBO and Showtime
Yeah.
in the early days of
Mhm.
Showtime. Like it would be like midday on all the time.
It's a fun, I wouldn't say kids movie. It's a family movie. I
Yeah.
guess there's not a lot of movies like that are kind of serious, adulty, but where you have a kid star. So how did you all get involved with making the featurette? Was this, I guess, Dan G, were you just, I know you make your own documentaries. Was this like Shout Factory did they approach you and just say, hey, we're about to do this thing?
Yeah, how it typically works, because there's no real grand plan. It's sort of like Shout, that one of the producers at Shout that I work with will reach out and say, hey, do you want to do new features for this title? And I will say yes or no. And then I just kind of think about, what it is. Sometimes, like when it comes to like film music related stuff, I'll call Daniel and say, hey, I'm doing this. What do you think? You think we could do something about the score for this? And then it just kind of goes from there. I think this plays off a little bit on something that a lot of the people that participated in the Horner piece also participated in the First Blood score piece that was done, and also Total Recall. We did one for Total Recall, and we did one for RoboCop. And it was sort of like this idea of getting people like Daniel, with people that we all collectively know. So Jeff Bond, and I think Robert Townsend was involved in two of those, I think. And Lucas Kendall or whoever. But we'll throw around like who can we get involved with this and make kind of a documentary short that just either breaks down the score, or in this case is a little bit more biographical in the idea of having the genesis or the first stages of someone like James Horner.
I mean, what really makes this segment, and I really think it's one of the better ones you've done, Dan, is that, we obviously have Sarah Horner, James's wife, and David Newman, who's an amazing composer. He's done Galaxy Quest and was, a player. He played in E.T. and Star Trek The Motion Picture. So, to have these people who are there, obviously in several different levels of that, really, I think brings an added poignancy as opposed to, people who just like his music talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That was so cool that y'all got Sarah Horner, I thought.
Well, that came out of, I was working on the features for Batteries Not Included. And
oh, cool.
Another James Horner scored movie.
Yeah, and I thought of doing this piece about Horner in the 80s kind of thing. And and it was mainly just an interview with her. I guess it kind of came out of because she couldn't remember a lot of details about the score for Batteries Not Included or any anecdotal stuff about it. But I thought if I combined it with her just talking about James Horner's work in the 80s and everything else, then I thought that would turn out to be pretty good. And when I did that, there was already rumbling that Battle Beyond the Stars would get a 4K release. So I thought, well, while I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and ask her what she remembers about those earlier days, because she worked at Roger Corman. She worked at New World. So,
oh, wow.
So she had kind of a first-person experience. She was there on the set of Humanoids from the Deep. So she saw things happening. She was working on the set. So she knew certain stories, and I think that made it even more interesting. And I include some of her recollections in the earlier part of that documentary.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I was really like, she remembers a lot about working on this movie.
Yeah, well, she was there, so she was in that group.
And his process, and I guess probably, and I don't know, but I imagine as he progresses with his career, and we're talking like Aliens, Field of Dreams, Braveheart, Titanic, Avatar, the list goes on, that, she was probably more attuned to what he was doing with the score because of that. She was actually working there and working with him. Did they meet on that movie?
They met prior. It wasn't that they met on a set or anything. They met prior, but I think that she started to kind of notice him in that time period. And, when I interviewed her for Batteries Not Included, it was really just the aspect of I consider James Horner sort of responsible for the soundtrack of my childhood. I mean, all the music scores I listened to as a kid, I mean, I probably listened to more of James Horner's work than I did someone like Goldsmith or Williams, who on their own did absolutely amazing work. And one, I'm a kid of a Spielberg generation, so obviously John Williams' work really stands out. But I just adored all of James Horner's scores, and even movies that I didn't watch or couldn't watch as a kid, I somehow found a way to still hear the music if they released a soundtrack.
Oh, wow. So for some of the folks out there who may not know James Horner as well, but I promise they do. So what distinguishes a James Horner score? Are there certain earmarks that you could just, without seeing a movie or anything, someone's just to play it, like you'd be like, that's a James Horner score?
Well, I mean, his use of brass, for one. And again, what composer doesn't borrow from other Greek composers? His way of kind of capturing the voice of Prokofiev, which definitely this Battle Beyond the Stars has, and a lot of stuff he's done has. But you could just tell.
You mentioned Alexander Nevsky on the documentary.
Yeah, I mean it's totally
which I love because I was like, oh, I know that. Yeah, exactly. He took that from that, but it's that.
Yeah, and a little side story. I got really familiar with that. I mean, in like the 6 Degrees of Separation, one of my favorite. I do the devil's work, temp tracking movies. And early on, I temp tracked Anastasia, the Don Bluth cartoon, which I love.
Oh, yeah.
And guess who would score Anastasia? Dave Newman. And he definitely...
and I love that y'all got Dave Newman, by the way. I'm a big fan of Dave Newman.
Of course.
And then all the Newmans, for that matter, even Thomas Newman.
Yeah, I mean, and we're sidetracking, but, Don, at that point, had a whole studio in Phoenix, Arizona that I went to with Ken Carman, my boss, to work on Anastasia. And the first 6 minutes of that, the whole prologue of her escaping Russia, I temped solidly with Alexander Nevsky. Completely with Alex. So,
wow.
And maybe a little bit of Lieutenant QG in there. So I basically was listening to Steiner, but people forget that Alexander Nevsky's a film score. People think of it as a classical piece, but it's a movie score. So again, this is a guy who really, along with Korngold and Steiner, really created the language of film music. So you have Horner from his own classical background really bringing that idea. And again, every composer, you could tell a John Williams score in 3 bars. So Horner is like that. He really, even, again, going off the range, Michael Giacchino, who did an amazing score for Fantastic Four. I can tell you Michael Giacchino scored a film like within a minute. So there are composers still out there. There are a lot of them really good composers who are amorphous, who can change themselves like a chameleon, which is great to get work. But in terms of composers where I can say that is the guy, I know exactly who does that, there are not a lot of them. And Horner really was one of, in my generation, really one of the guys with Goldsmith and Williams. We're right off the bat. Elmer Bernstein, you know who these guys, Delarue, you know who these guys were immediately.
Is that similar to like how, I guess in the 60s and 70s, like a lot of directors were allowed a little more free reign by the studio to make their own pieces and have their, the work that they wanted to make? Was the world of scoring a film kind of like that in the 80s? Or
I don't know about that. I mean, I think obviously you had the music departments were getting, a lot bigger, and they had a lot kind of more power in terms, and rock soundtracks obviously came into play, like, who can we sell a soundtrack with, but like rock songs. But again, Horner with Williams was one of these people who really navigated that. Silvestri, back in the day, who could get releases of their scores. I mean, Battle Beyond the Stars had an LP release when it came out. So I was listening to that quite a bit. But yeah, I don't know. I think it still is kind of the director, for the most part, has his choice of who he wants to use. And obviously, Corman had a very talented, eager person who was willing to probably eat every profit he could have made to ensure the best calling card score he could have.
This might be a weird question, but we mentioned how he was kind of hungry. Can you hear that at all in the score? Is there sort of a young composer's impression on the score?
Well, I mean, enthusiasm. You could definitely hear that this guy loves what he's doing. I mean, Dan, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think you sense when I hear that score, and I would say you hear it even more in Crawl than this.
Krull has a lot of horns. I mean, so many horns.
But there seems to be, I don't want to say a sense of madness, but it's like there's a sense of hunger and desire to do something big or to elevate, maybe just to elevate himself or to seize an opportunity. But there is certainly this aspect of a composer that's really trying to prove that he can play with the big boys, even though that may not have been his intention. But there seems to be in that score this drive to really show what he's capable of, and he does borrow. I mean, no, who doesn't borrow from the greater people that came before you? We all it's sort of like it melds into you and becomes part of your own voice. But I do think that there is that aspect of drive and determination and enthusiasm. To me, it's impressive what was accomplished there.
Does it maybe add to the majestic quality of the scores?
Yeah. I mean, I would say in preparation for doing the project with Daniel and Jeff and David and Sarah, I would listen to the score in my car, just driving, running errands, whatever. I would just listen to it just on rotation over and over and over. And I really, I guess, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but scores that you listen to most of your life, when you revisit them in different stages of your life, you extrapolate different things from them, or you might notice something that you might not have noticed as much when you were younger.
Absolutely. Sometimes it feels like the background music when you're driving through traffic kind of thing.
Right. And so there are parts of the score that I would say are my favorite now that were not my favorite, when I was younger. And it's like, so it's neat how being able to hear it, and certainly being able to hear better, cleaner versions of the score. I think, because what was the latest release, Daniel, wasn't that La La Land, or was it Entrada?
Entrada put out the latest. I mean, it's bounced like By Soundtracks put it out at one point.
Yeah, because the first CD release of the score I purchased was By Soundtracks. Version.
But then Entrada, I think, cleaned up the sound a bit and I think expanded, and also put on the complete score. And then the album. Yes. And again, you'll have different performances, stuff that gets dropped that makes the album, all this. So it's like literally everything. And then they put some sound, I think there's some sound effects on there as well that Alan did.
Yes, some of them. Which another feature on the release is an interview with Alan Howarth, who talks about the sound effect aspect of the film. And that's pretty wild, too.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you a question. So I think you might have spoke to this earlier, Dan G. Whenever let's say it's a featurette or something that you're being asked to do, are they normally like, hey, we're looking for something on James Horner on this, because he was, obviously a big composer and this is one of his first movies? Or we sort of find like whenever we approach a film, this may sound a little pretentious, that there's kind of a story to the film. I don't know if there's a star had a big ego, director switched, or it's a low budget passion project or something. There's usually a story or a through line to the film talking about it. When you do your own documentaries or featurettes, how do you approach it from that angle? Do you sort of find a story with the film, or do you just like focus on an element?
It depends on what the movie is. In this case, there had been features that detailed aspects of the making of the film that were going to be ported over. And I always take that into account. Like, I'm not going to create a documentary about the making of Battle Beyond the Stars if someone's already kind of covered a lot of that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So I try to find elements that weren't covered. So I'm adding additional value to, so a person buying it, they're like, oh, there's another interview with so-and-so. Like, I mean, I've done a lot of John Carpenter releases. And I always kind of look at, John Carpenter was heavily involved in the earlier stages of like DVD and Blu-ray, but is not as much now. And I think it may be that he's just talked out, like he just doesn't really have anything else to say.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't go, I'm going to do another interview with John Carpenter, a new interview with John Carpenter that go with the 3 or 4 older interviews with John Carpenter. You're really not You're not adding something new. It's just another interview. And not to knock, I mean, I listened to John Carpenter talk about, whatever movie we want.
I love a salty John Carpenter interview. Chain smoking. And
yeah, but still, to answer your question, I typically look at what was done already and see what I might dig deeper into.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's like a blank slate, like for instance, Waterworld, which just celebrated its 30th anniversary yesterday.
Oh, yay.
I did a very lengthy documentary about Waterworld, which was one of the, as I mentioned, the 10 documentaries I want to make before I die. And
cool.
It was kind of a clean slate. There was nothing really there. So I immediately was like, I'm going to do this big documentary and I'm going to interview everyone I can and I'm going to do this right. And really, I wanted to create something that resembled what earlier, I guess I say the earlier days of DVD bonus features, where they would be like on the Tron release, the DVD release from Disney, there was a very lengthy documentary, or Last Starfighter, there's a very lengthy documentary, or, the Aliens films, they're very lengthy documentaries. And there's these filmmakers that made these things on the earlier days of home media. And I wanted to basically create something that was similar to what they did, but kind of in my own way. But that was the goal. So that was like a clean slate. I mean, that was like a blank slate. I could just do, whatever. But no one comes to me, I would say 9.9 times out of 10, no one comes to me and says, we want you to do this specific thing. They just say, this is coming out. What are your thoughts about bonus features? And I'll think about it. And as I mentioned, sometimes I'll call Daniel and talk to him about it because we're friends also. And so that's kind of how it works. I think at this point, I've done so many that when someone comes to me to do features, they're kind of coming to me with also the idea of what that might be.
Yeah. I
think earlier, I'd have to pitch stuff, or someone would come to me on the earlier days and be like, hey, we want an interview feature with so-and-so. And then I would just do it. But yeah, I guess after a certain amount of time,
they just trust your experience. And
I guess I don't say I don't know if they trust my experience or my background, but usually what happens is just, hey, we're putting this out. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought the featurette was like really, it flowed well. It was really polished. And I mean, yeah, you obviously are a master of the craft, but you mentioned like 10 films that you wanted to make documentaries on, and you've made a number of those. Are there, could you just name a couple that maybe?
Yeah, so I've done several. So I did Streets of Fire, and I did Waterworld, Dune, David Lynch's Dune.
Oh, wow.
Dark Star, John Carpenter, Dan O'Bannon's first film, Dark Star. That was like the first documentary I ever made, and it kind of happened by accident. But those are for, I can tell you.
What's left?
So I really want to do something on Dick Tracy, Warren Beatty's film. I really want to do.
Oh, cool. Yeah. We talked about that on a podcast. Yeah.
I gravitate towards movies that they work and they don't work, or it's just some people they worked and some people they don't work. And it's like, I like trying to understand a film that, it might say it has a cult following, but would be a film that people just don't quite get. John Wayne's The Alamo is one I want to do.
Oh, wow.
And I've actually outlined that a couple of times.
I worked with a guy, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I worked with a guy that he told me his grandfather was an extra on The Alamo.
Oh, yeah?
And he said, he said John Wayne was an a-hole, just like, because he was producing and directing the movie, or at the same time, or producing at the movie at least.
Yeah, of all the accounts I've heard of John Wayne or read of John Wayne on the making of that, I mean, he was under an incredible amount of stress. And so I imagine he would be very short with everyone.
At night, he'd get drunk and go beat up hippies.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Hey, you with the long hair.
Hey, hippie with the long hair. Come here. You want to fight? Throw down, pilgrim.
Donnie Darko was another one that I did that's on that list. It was a film that I felt like was very misunderstood and has a cult following. But
well, Southland Tales, dude, that's a great one you did.
Yeah, same director. Yeah.
Yeah, I did kind of a follow-up doc to Donnie Darko doing the Southland Tales, but that happened, at the height of the pandemic. So everybody was in lockdown. There was no real way of doing what I wanted to do, but I kind of improvised and did it anyway.
Oh, wow. What a challenge.
Because most features didn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Releases were actually in greater demand in that window of time. I was actually busier during the pandemic than I'd ever been because everyone was just trying to get movies out because people were at home and people were still buying them.
People were buying more physical media too, I guess.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing. So I had to do a lot of features, kind of improvising in the way to do it with either Zoom or having them film themselves with their phone if they didn't have a camera and then send me the footage. There's all kinds of stuff that I did, but it worked out with Southland Tales because that's all about kind of a surveillance society. And so I just sort of made it work into the design of the doc.
It doesn't seem too out of place to use Zoom nowadays in these kind of situations. I mean, I watched that Ethan Hawke documentary about Paul Newman.
Yeah.
And he had Zooms with actor friends of his just right there in front of you. And it was like, no big deal. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. It's a split screen interview. No big deal.
Well, it's the aesthetic of everything is important to me. So I want this to look good. I want it to look as professional as possible. But when you have to compromise, you have to compromise. But I do think that in doing a documentary, it's the information first, and then it's what you do with the information to make it compelling. I mean, I didn't use any. The Dune documentary was done during the pandemic, and I didn't use any on-camera stuff. Mm-hmm. All the interviews I did, Zoom, and while I did it all on camera, I didn't use any of it. Mm-hmm. But I had an interesting idea because I had all this audio from the footage that was shot. The behind the scenes, there's all this behind the scenes footage that was shot on the set of the making of that film. And some of it got worked into a few EPKs and a few like convention, like sizzle reel production. But all the footage is lost or destroyed or is buried somewhere in Universal's vaults. But the audio, all the DAT tapes for the audio existed with this one writer who at the time was hired to document the making of Dune for Lynch. So he had all this audio from these interviews that were shot on location, but also audio from the footage. So what I did is I had this idea of like, I'm going to interview these people that worked on the film, but I'm going to have them, as much as I can, try to reference what they're talking about, not in past tense, but in kind of a present tense. Like as if this happened yesterday. And then I sort of worked in this audio of sound of like construction sound and stuff as this underbed that made it seem like all this audio was recorded on location. And that was my gimmick for that. It's like I have all these disembodied voices, but it really worked for something like David Lynch's Dune because that film is already taking very bold, creative directions.
It's still my favorite version of Dune, actually, off the record here.
We won't tell anybody, Jordan.
To me, it is the most inventive Dune.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. It really tried its best to create something, I'm going to say purely original. And we're talking about Battle Beyond Stars and the whole aspect of Star Wars being so influential. Mm-hmm. This was an attempt to create Star Wars with this property. And I think what they did was they created something that was deeper and, I think much more, I don't want to say inventive because Star Wars is pretty inventive, but I think it found its own voice within all of this other noise that was science fiction, Star Wars inspired films.
I feel like it was deeper though. I mean, the line that Paul Atreides' father tells to him still sits with me, that without change, something sleeps inside of us. Yes. Seldom awakens.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying on a deeper level. Yeah. It's like, to me, that's more like biblical than biblical.
Yeah, it's great. It's an amazing film. And I love it to this day.
I love it. I'm a gigantic fan of that. I love them both. I got no problems loving both movies.
Yeah.
You like both versions, Dan Schweiger? The Denis Villeneuve version as well.
Love them both. They're both great. I was just blown away with the film. I mean, I obviously, in most cases, I prefer the theatrical cut, and in this case, I certainly do. But I'll never forget taking my dad, and he loved it. That movie really tried to do something and be an epic and be weird and challenging in a way that a lot of big budget stuff was. I mean, again, I'm gonna go off again. I mean, last night I picked up the new 4K of Brazil by Criterion. It's amazing. I have never seen Brazil look this great. And I'll never forget seeing Brazil in its initial 1 week run in New York City when you didn't know if it was ever going to come out. And I sat through it twice. That was the New York Critic. That was the thing that saved the whole movie. And again, it's like Brazil in the fact that you literally have a movie by Universal creating this incredible world. Just so much ambition, to do something really strange and weird. And I mean, again, as much as I love mainstream stuff like you wouldn't believe, I don't think you see that kind of risk taking from major studio movies like this anymore.
Yeah, no, because everything's a sequel. If you look at what's coming out this summer, it's just like sequel after sequel, remake of old properties.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I would say, talking about this summer, I mean, I think this summer has been great. One of the better summers for movies. I mean, everything that I thought might be a miss blew my mind. Even the stuff that was remakes. I mean, the live action How to Train Your Dragon is amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely wonderful. And
we just talked about Sinners on a previous podcast.
Yeah,
that just blew me away.
Yeah. Well, Sinners is a movie that really takes chances.
Yeah, I love the risks that it took. Yeah. Exactly.
Because again, you have a proven director, you have an audience that's going to be up for it. It took chances, but it's within kind of
a bankable leading man, even still with Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, but it could get away with it because it cost money, but it wasn't like over the insane amount of whatever, and they knew they had like a hit, and there was definitely a lot of stuff that was acceptable within the craziness of that film. So that's something that really pushes the limits, I think, of a genre film.
Mm-hmm. Definitely,
and the score is fantastic.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ludwig Göransson. Oh, he's good.
Oh, yeah.
And then the blues combination of Miles Caton singing in that movie.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, can I ask Dan Griffith, was there a doc that you worked on where you had to leave out details of like drug use or something scandalous behind? And obviously, you wouldn't want to mention it maybe for some reasons other than that, but was there a doc like that where you had to worry about that kind of thing in the editing and all?
Yeah, I mean, there's always stories. Like if there's a drama on certain movies, there's always stories, and you'll hear them or record them, but then you kind of think, I'm not going to use that. And sometimes there's whole interviews I don't use because I find out something, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So it's weird.
Like as an example, I think I heard Charlie Desla Rica, who worked on, who did the Blade Runner commentary, and the documentaries, Dangerous Days, and all that. Who's another guy like kind of up there in your milieu?
Yeah, he's like, I guess, gold standard.
Yeah, because he worked on Aliens, you mentioned earlier.
I'm like way down the bottom.
Oh man,
you're up there with him whether you like it or not. You're great. But no, he mentioned like how he had to leave out all the drug use on Blade Runner. I think on the special. He talked about that in a comment I saw later on. But that kind of thing.
Yeah, stuff like that does come up, and you do kind of have to navigate through it because you don't want to. I mean, for legal reasons, you don't want to get yourself in trouble, but
right, and you want to make the person look bad at the same time, or whatever, maybe.
Yeah, there have been more like risk-related stories that I include with certain movies, and I have to cut it out because they don't want, for legal reasons, to like learn that kind of risk was taken.
Oh, like somebody did a stunt they weren't supposed to.
Someone did their own stunt, and it could have totally went wrong, and that person could have no longer been with us, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's little things like that, and then sometimes there's interviews where a person would share a story that's just fantastic, like just the greatest story, and then it can't be used because somewhere in that great story it undermining someone else's contribution to something. That was a lot with writers. Like a writer will tell a story about something, but I've interviewed people before. I found out later that they'd done some not so good things to some people, and like really bad stuff, and I just completely cut them out of the project.
Oh wow!
Just because I was like, I'm not gonna shine the limelight on this person if they're guilty of this. It just doesn't work.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. The ethical component, I hadn't thought about that, or just people just, I don't know, being bitter, or there's always some of that, I guess. In retrospect, people be bitter or mean or unkind, and it's just not fun. We don't want to hear that sort of thing sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, if it's a part of the story of what is going on screen, then I tend to, even if it's controversial, I try to be honest with it. But but if it's like a sideline thing, it has nothing really to do with the making of the film. I use my discretion. I don't want my job to be ruining a movie for someone.
Right.
Like all of a sudden they find out that something bad happened, or someone was an ass and beat someone or whatever. And you find that out, and then it just changes the way you look at one of your favorite movies. And now, this guy comes along, makes a documentary, and it just irritates you. This has actually happened. So early in my career doing this, I made a documentary about a 1972 movie called Stanley. And it's about a man and his snake. And there's a scene, and I asked him this point blank. I asked him a question about, did he just goes crazy and he just grabs all these snakes and is just thrashed them around, bang them around. And I was like, well, those like or dead snakes or whatever. And clearly they're not all dead. And he just was in the moment going all crazy and just lashed and lashed and lashed. And I included it in the doc because I thought, well, that needs to be addressed, I guess. And I had so many people come up to me and said, I grew up watching that movie. I love that movie. And I watched your documentary, and I cannot support a movie where animals are killed just for the sake of making a movie.
Oh, wow.
And I don't like the movie anymore. Thank you very much. And that has happened. That is a good example.
So I do have a question here for Dan G. Of the many wonderful documentaries that you've made, there was one that sort of stood out for me. It's the Primevals. Yeah, I remember that because this movie famously wasn't made. It was a passion project by animator David Allen, who didn't finish it before his death. And it was picked up by a Kickstarter campaign years later, and it was finally made. I haven't seen it, even though I did contribute to the Kickstarter campaign. I did get a T-shirt, and I still haven't seen it, but I think I'm going to go out and buy the DVD now. Can you tell us a little bit more about that movie? I think that's an interesting story.
Yeah, I read a lot about it as a kid, and Cinefantastique did a whole nice big article about it, or I guess a whole edition devoted to it.
I remember that.
And there was always rumblings about it in Starlog magazine and stuff like that. When I started working on the Empire documentary, part of that story I wanted to cover Primevals because part of the documentary, the Empire documentary, deals with Charles Band's career, the formation of Charles Band Productions, and then that time period is when Primevals kind of first, I guess its genesis first began there, as far as being an actual production. And that whole story fascinated me, and I formed a good relationship with Chris Endicott, who really inherited a lot of David Allen's material. I would say he inherited David Allen as a creative force. He inherited everything that was David Allen. He kind of took it upon himself, because David Allen was his mentor, took it upon himself to try to find a way to finish the movie. And I found that fascinating, the whole idea of a movie that was the dream project of a very successful stop motion animator, effects titan, very successful person in his own right. This is his dream project. It never got realized. And finding all these effects people that would work together to help finish it. And some of them in spite of what they thought of David Allen. And I thought that was really kind of magical. And I started doing interviews, and Chris had already began that project, interviewing people. And so I took a lot of his material and shot some new material and sort of fused it together to create this story. But it's a labor of love project. And while the documentary, I think, turned out really good, it's really half the story. There just wasn't really the time to fully realize it for Charlie's release of the film. And it's something I've learned with Charlie, and is not a negative. When he gets something in his mind, he wants it out tomorrow. And so you kind of just have to work within his schedule. So it just ran out of time. But I still have all that material, and I'm trying to find a way to put out the complete version. And that's something that will still happen, I think, down the road.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd like to. Well, I need to go out buy the DVD, or I think you can also subscribe to Full Moon, like their streaming service. Where can you find some of your work like that?
Yeah. So I guess most of it is just on whatever release I did it for.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain edition of Primevals that has all the bonus features on it. There's I think there's like a movie only edition, and then there's like a 3-disc version that has 2 versions of the movie and then all the features. And one of those features was really pretty great, along with all these archival things that we accumulated, which we tried to really pack into the release. I got to film a Q&A at ILM at the theater at Lucasfilm with all of these effects titans, all having this kind of roundtable discussion about David Allen and Primevals. And that happened right after we screened Primevals for the first time. And Chris Endicott really wanted this audience, I guess his audience of David Allen's peers, to be the first people to see it.
Oh, wow.
And so it was pretty great because there were all these amazing people in the audience. I was like, oh my God, it's all these different people that I grew up idolizing, people like Dennis Muren and Joe Johnston and all these just amazing people. They're all in the audience. I got to watch this movie with them.
Yeah, we talked about Equinox way back, I think, as one of our first episodes, and it was just fascinating to hear that whole story about how those guys got started. And yeah, I can only imagine who all would attend that. That's amazing.
Well, Daniel, you can talk about the score for that. Really turned out pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, Richard Band did a really, I think it's actually one of his best scores. I mean, no offense, I think the score might be better than the movie, but again,
oh no, should we edit that out?
No, that's a valid opinion. That's completely valid.
Nah, the movie is what it is, and I actually put together the first promo reel for it way back in the day, and it's on it's the one where I temped it with Outbreak because I was tempting everything with Outbreak. The movie is charming. It's what it is. I mean, obviously the standout is the amazing stop motion. There's zero faulting the beautiful effects work and the incredible stop motion animation in it. And of course, Dan did a really great heartfelt documentary for it. I mean, that was a seminal, like a major inspiration in me even getting into entertainment journalism was that incredible CFQ issue of the Primevals in, I think, 1979.
Yes.
Which I remember seeing in a newsstand and I bought.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually probably the first CFQ issue I ever bought. But again, I think it's amazing. I think it might hold a record of the longest film to ever get to take decades before it was ever finished, unless someone finds Cordon's Fall of the Roman Empire,
Yeah.
And God bless Chris Endicott, who really went the tote to get this thing done. Again, I was lucky enough to hang with David a little bit when I was working at Full Moon. And again, it was great to see it come out. And the heart, its heart is definitely there. But I think, again, it's an abject lesson in the score, making a film a lot more exciting and giving a lot more production value.
Mm-hmm.
With Richard, again, through his career with Charlie, sometimes it started out with real orchestras and then ended up getting some pretty threadbare resources for getting, again, to do a really terrific score for this, because, again, you got some money. But the music's always there. The music is always there with Richard. Mm-hmm. It's just basically what resources do you have to apply to get that music across. But again, I think the documentary that Dan did is very heartfelt and really wonderfully nostalgic. And there's a whole other level that I appreciated that, again, as a kid growing up on stop motion and wanting to see this thing get done.
Yeah. Wow. I can't wait to see it. I'm kind of ashamed I haven't, but I do have the t-shirt. So one of those.
I'm realizing we could almost do a separate podcast about Charles Band.
That's the whole thing.
These two dudes right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
There's plenty of stories about Charles Band and on his movies and stuff.
You two both have been very generous with your time. I have one last question here for Dan G. So do you have any highlights or high points from working on MST3K?
Yeah, I really loved working on the features for the motion picture they did because they gave me the opportunity to do a separate doc about the making of This Island Earth. And I really had a lot of fun with making that document. Even revisiting it now, I'm like, wow, this was very clever. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I just kind of threw it out there. Just, hey, I'm going to do this way and try to have some fun with it. But then working on bringing back the show for Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on the ground floor of that when it was just an idea percolating and possible. I wonder if we could do this. I don't know. What kind of ideas would we come up with? I mean, I got to be there through that whole process, all the way through planning a Kickstarter, shooting the stuff for Kickstarter, running the Kickstarter, and then writing it and bringing all the elements together to tell the story. So I rarely have an opportunity to be there from the beginning of something. Most of the stuff I'm doing, it's sort of after the fact. And the fact that I could be there and I could film and document it and ask the questions as things evolve versus ask the questions after it's all finished. To me, that was magical. And it certainly was the one thing that I wish that I could do for most movies is to be there from the beginning and kind of be in the trenches. And I just don't get that opportunity ever. I mean, it just doesn't happen. And, I lobby for it sometimes, but I just never get the opportunity.
Is it because you're working on movies from the past more, right?
Yeah, but I guess it's like I'm not in the right circles. Yeah. And I guess people, they also, no matter what part of production you're involved in, people kind of look at what you've done most of the time, and they just assume that that's what you do.
Yeah, right. That's the way the business is. Yeah,
and they have this kind of tunnel vision when it comes to like what you're capable of doing versus, I just keep doing that same old thing you're doing. It seems to be working out for you. And I think it happens, across the board. Actors experience it all the time. Directors experience it. Writers experience it.
It's just typecasting all over in the business.
Yeah.
Typecasting for a director even.
Yeah, I would love to be like in that position more often because I understand the process of making a movie and I understand all the elements and how they come together. So I could be able to get all the material I need as the process is going along. Makes it so much easier when I'm sitting down in the edit suite trying to put it all together and build a narrative out of it. And that one turned out really good. I was able to really just kind of follow the whole process along. And I was really happy with how that turned out.
All right. Well, we're going to send you some good vibes. Like anyone listening, get in touch with Danji, get him on a big movie, get him on the front end. He can do it.
I'll third that motion.
I agree. Yeah. He knows his stuff, man. I think you could make a movie the way you edit and everything.
Oh, sure.
You'd make a great movie.
A documentary is a movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
your docs are already great. You'd make a great talkie movie, dialogue movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Really impressed.
You'd make a great drama, sci-fi, horror, whatever, I'm sure.
Well, I used to, and a friend of mine brought this to my attention, but it was actually Jeff Burr who said, you make movies about the making of movies. And so I always thought, well, that's going to be the way I'm going to look at things is like I try to, no matter what, if it's short or long, I try to make it feel like a entertainment, and not just you're learning something, but it doesn't always work out the way you want because your budget limitations, time limitations, you're limited to what elements you have access to. So you go in with the best intentions and just try to do the best you can.
Yeah.
But the history you must see in archives must also be interesting at the same time.
Sometimes you get access to really cool stuff. I recently did this documentary for Drag Me to Hell.
Oh, Sam Raimi.
Oh, yeah.
Great movie.
And apparently, and this has a lot to do with the fact that his editor is someone I consider to be a friend, and he kind of vouched for me to Sam to give me access to this material because I think he knew that I would try to do something great with it. So all this stuff was filmed on the set, and there were some interviews that were filmed, and I ended up shooting a lot more interviews. But there was all this footage, and I just kind of went through all of it and tried to build the best documentary I could out of it. It's a little bit over 2 hours, the documentary about it.
Wow.
But it was one of the situations where they actually documented the score sessions. So I had all this great footage.
Oh, cool.
Of Chris conducting this orchestra in this church. And I never get stuff like that. So I was just like, wow, not only do I have Chris talking about the score and I have the editor talking about the score and I have I guess I don't know if it was his conductor or his arranger. I think it was his arranger. But I had these interviews and was able to really deep dive into the score. But you got to see Chris, in action, but him also communicate to the orchestra like, no, let's try this again. That doesn't quite work or whatever. You never get footage like that. So
wow,
it was really a lot of fun to just have that kind of material.
And footage of people playing always cuts together well, right?
Yeah. It was pretty great. So
access to the Sam Raimi vault. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and he seemed to like what I did. So that was kind of nice.
Oh, you got the Sam Raimi approval. Oh man.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was nervous because I grew up imitating Sam Raimi's movies in the woods surrounding my home.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
So I mean, I had a Super 8 camera, and I was just making Evil Dead knockoffs all summer long, all the time. And so it was really great to be doing something for a filmmaker that I really loved and appreciated when I was a kid.
All right. Well, this has been really great, guys. Where can we find you next? Dan S.
Well, I mean, I've got another really fun thing coming out with Dan, which is a look at Miklos Rozsa's score for Larry Cohen's best film, in my opinion, The Private Files of J. Edgar Hoover, which is going to be part of a Larry Cohen box set that Shout is putting out, which also has Perfect Witness and, oh my God, Bad Stepmother on it.
Yeah, it's Wicked Stepmother and special effects.
Special effects, yeah. And liner note wise, I've got two really pretty cool Bad Cop scores. I've done liner score from Quartet Records. One is Ennio Morricone's score for Cop Killer, which is a pretty cool little thriller that came out and no one saw it, with Johnny Rotten's only theatrical real appearance as an actor, and he's good in it. Ennio Morricone scored this, and
is that the one with Harvey Keitel?
Yeah, yeah.
I used to have a bad EP copy of that.
Oh, it's the horrible.
In the 90s, yeah. It's where he makes him eat dog food, and I'm sorry, spoilers.
Yeah. I paid $20 to get the way better transfer but it's unwatchable otherwise.
I had the bad EP where it was muddy looking and
awful, and that's called 90s. Order of Death. And the other thing, which is really a grail project for me, is doing the liner notes for the first ever CD release of Paul Chihara's score for Sidney Lumet's Prince of the City. And again, I did Dan was great enough to let me do a whole look at the Pawnbroker score on the Sidney Lumet box set that Imprint put out. But this is one of my favorite Lumet movies, and it's just an amazing, beautiful, haunting, impressionistic score that I wore my LP out, hoping for decades. It's happening, coming out this week from Quartet Records. So there you go.
Oh, wow. Right. Wow, Dan.
Yeah, Paul's score for that is just amazing. I did an interview with him because there were going to be it was like a 4K release that I think is not coming out now for that film. But he asked me if I had the vinyl of it when I was doing the interview, and I was like, no, but I have a lot of vinyl and I enjoy listening to vinyl. And so he mailed me his vinyl copy of the score, and he signed it, which was pretty spectacular. So
neat.
I was like, wow, I didn't even expect that. So it was kind of neat. I was like, oh, that's very nice of him. So
wow.
Yeah, he's a great composer. And Daniel's work is fantastic on these releases.
Oh, God bless you, brother.
I agree. Awesome. Yeah, man. I like how intricate you are with all this stuff on film scores, Dan Schweiger. Yeah.
Well, I love it, dude. I grew up scores made my life. I love scores. Yeah. I couldn't play two notes in harmony to save my life. So everything I come from is from Joe Schmo like me wanting to know why the music is cool without me going into A-clips and arpeggios and everything else.
Yeah.
Just trying to explain, why the music works. And it's as simple as that. So again, I really am incredibly grateful for this whole new avenue of being able to talk about music thanks to Dan Griffith.
I like that you're there to dissect it and all that. I appreciate that. 'Cause being a guy, I mean, same as you guys, I grew up with John Williams, James Horner, Jerry Goldsmith. This is the music of my childhood.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, favorite James Horner scores, Dan Griffith, Dan Schweiger. Scores or score,
Jesus, I didn't even know where to begin.
I wonder if that was going to be your
tough question.
Yeah, I would say it'd probably be a cross between Kroll.
Nice.
And then Probably The Rocketeer.
Yeah, Rocketeer.
Yeah.
Rocketeer.
Yeah, that's
a
Colin
one.
Rocketeer.
Rocketeer was a great score by him. For me, it's Cocoon.
Yeah, so Cocoon the Return, that sequence where Hume Cronin and Jessica Tandy gets hit by a car and Hume Cronin kind of gets his life force over her.
Yes. I know what you're talking about. He heals her back.
That piece of that score there, I swear to God, either if I'm watching the movie or just listening to that piece of music, I swear to you, I cry every time.
Oh, damn. Yeah. That's the way I'm with the Cocoon score itself.
Yeah. But I love his scores for those movies.
Yeah. Even Willow, just...
Yeah. Well, Willow is great, but I feel like it underuses the theme a bit.
Mm-hmm.
When the theme kicks up in this big swashbuckling kind of moment.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, it doesn't do it enough.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's kind of like there's excerpts from Hans Zimmer's score for Gladiator. There's sections that I'm like, man, I wish he played this cue more in the score because that cue was awesome. And I feel the same way with Willow. It's like, I wish that there was a little bit more that swashbuckling kind of theme.
Yeah.
But the score is beautiful. I just wish there was more of it.
One night, my dad, just for kicks when I was a kid, we were watching the John Landis movie Into the Night, and there's this chase sequence where they're driving out of a garage. And my dad said, the music is lame on here, and just for grins, he put on the Willow chase scene, and it worked like gangbusters it made the scene come to life.
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's what good music can do. All right, Dan Griffith, where can we find you? Any projects?
Yeah. So I've been working pretty diligently on a lot of the Golden Princess Library titles that Shout is putting out. So things like The Killer, Hard Boils. And so I've been, and like,
oh, hell yeah.
Chinese Ghost Story, all those titles.
The John Woo movies.
Yeah, I've been working on a lot of that stuff here recently with the occasional like detour into like, I recently did this Red Scare documentary for the Invasion USA release that
cool.
Film Masters is putting out. Not the Chuck Norris film, but it's kind of a Red Scare documentary about that time period.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but those are mainly, that's what's been kind of keeping me busy lately. There's been a lot of these Golden Princess titles.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Great being back.
It's great talking to you.
Come back anytime.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys. Anytime we'll talk about some full moon movies or something, or anytime you just want to talk.
Great.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been wonderful, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right, have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
All right, Jordan, for our next episode.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
This is a challenge now. Yes. Here it comes.
Okay, Jordan, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, so throwback movies that are reboots of old serials or comics.
Oh.
Right? We've already talked about Dick Tracy. Everyone go check out that episode.
Yeah.
But how about this? 4 movies, you pick one of them. The Shadow, the Alec Baldwin movie.
Yeah, okay.
The Phantom from the 90s, that Billy Zane movie.
Yeah.
Doc Savage, that movie from the 70s.
Michael Anderson directed, yeah. Man.
Yeah.
From Logan's Run, another movie we talked about.
Or, you ready for it? Flash Gordon.
Oh, boy. Let's talk about The Shadow, the Alec Baldwin Shadow. Let's talk about that one, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Why's that?
It's an interesting mess of a movie. I don't know.
Okay. I think we already know.
It is directed by a director I admire, Russell Mulcahy, though. Yeah, I'd be down to talk about The Shadow, oddly.
Okay. Well,
let's talk about The Shadow with Alec Baldwin.
All right. That'll be a fun episode. Everyone watch The Shadow before our next episode, and you can catch up.
Let's do it.
All right, and thank you all for listening, especially to our new listeners. If you enjoyed this, then tell your kids, tell your wife. Please check out our other episodes if you like this, and feel free to smash those buttons, but just the good ones. Give us a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until then, Jordan, this has been...
The robots took my podcast. This podcast is going up against Sador, Anthony. We don't stand a snowball's chance in hell.
All trailers, clips, music, or any other copyrighted material are used sparingly, edited from their original forms, and used for the purposes of criticism, discussion, commentary, and education about these fine films.